Hello and welcome to NewsNight. I am Ladi Akeredoluale. Thanks for joining us. My guest today is appearing for the fourth time since the program was relaunched some 40 months ago, a testament to his continuing relevance almost 3 decades after leaving office. Now, as he turns 80, he says he's quite concerned about issues of Nigeria's unity, especially agitations for secession and requests for further discussions about the subject. He has described unity as a settled matter for Nigeria. My guest also says he's been proved right by time on the issue of the annulment of the June 12, 1993 presidential election. NewsNight speaks to Nigeria's former military president, General Ibrahim Babangida. General, once again, it's lovely to see you.
Lovely to see you too, laddie.
And happy birthday.
Thank you.
80 is not just a milestone, it's a sitting stone. And I was taking a look at it. We were here in October last year to speak to you. And at that time we said, okay, when you're 80, we'll be back. And then just in the run-up to this interview, it occurred to me that that would be our fourth interaction with you in 40 months.
That's not bad, is it?
No, actually, it's quite a privilege. And we thank you for that.
Thank you too.
Why did you join the military at the time? Because you possibly could have done anything else, given what your records indicate. You could have been anything you wanted to be. Why did you choose the military?
I was a product of political processing at that time. There was a program of Nigerianization of the armed forces of the country, and also the process of, if I use that word, northernization, to make sure that people from this part of the country join the army. It's a political decision. So when people came, they talked to us when we were growing up to make a career in the army. As I said, if I give you an example, Yakubu Gawan was moving around our schools to talk to us as young people that there is a good career in the army, we should come and join the army. And that's what happened.
Your history is military, and then subsequently a little bit of politics. If you had it to do all over again, would you do that?
I pray we don't have to go do all over again, because you are saying that we should go back to pre-independence.
Well, I was talking about you personally, Your Excellency. I meant you.
No. Again, it depends on the position we found ourselves at that time. I wanted to be an administrator. I wanted to be an engineer, but I wasn't able to.
Because you joined the army, or was there another reason?
Because I joined the army.
You seem to have a nose for when things change, the movement of direction. Because your history, and from things you've said before, you're able to read things very easily.
To read?
Things very easily. Read atmosphere, the mood, and all of that. Because the history is that you've always been part of every successful change of government. What is it about that is you?
I was fortunate to be in strategic places within the armed forces. I was also fortunate that there was a lot of confidence in me as a commander of troops at a very young age, lieutenants with 38 people, company commander with about 120, regimental commander with about 200, and so on, up to the army. It's just, but when I was also growing, I was in a very strategic unit of the Nigerian Armed Forces, where those are units that you definitely need them to participate in such ventures.
Looking back today, do you sometimes laugh at that aspect of you?
Which one?
That is that you can see that the wind is blowing in a direction, and probably even before anybody else, you're able to see that.
That's why you are a human being. You have to be very instinctive on some of these things. You can read a situation. I once told you guys in the media, and you took me on. I said, wherever I am, I try to dominate my own environment, which is part of my training anyway.
The alpha male. The alpha male. There's this iconic picture of you getting into your official car, NA1, I believe, just after August 27th, 1985. What was it that was in your mind then that, okay, now I have the means and I have the authority. Where am I going to take this country? What was that?
Well, I think you should tell me. After we elucidated what we wanted to do for you people when we got in August of 1985. We liberalized, what is the right word? We came in on 2 or 3 planks. We knew then that you cannot succeed in getting the people. We wanted to mobilize the Nigerians. They were bright people, they were good, and they could be obedient. So then the country has a lot of resources. So we need to mobilize the people with the resources that the country has and provide the people a leadership towards achieving, making the country a greater country. That is the first thing that came into our mind. How do we do it? Were some of the policies we put in place. We wanted full participation of the people. So anything that stifled them, the decrees, for example, that didn't give them the opportunity to talk and say anything, we said no, we change it. We abrogated that decree. And then we had control of the economy, or we ran a controlled economy. We knew that the people wanted to take this in their hands. We ran the politics, and we knew that for the country to succeed, you have got to mobilize the people to do it on their own. So those are the things we wanted to see done. And therefore we came out with a clear vision about the country, mobilizing the country, freeing the economy from government control, allowing the people to talk and say what they wanted to see, allow the people to decide on how they should be. Those are things that came to our mind, and I think I'm glad we did.
There are those, of course, who have pointed to the fact that, yes, you did that, but you also kept, for example, Decree 2, which still gave you the authority.
But it was not as restrictive or as more than Decree 4, is it?
Decree 4, yes.
Yeah. All the same, that decree that you talked about was still there when we allowed the media to become publicly owned, so that you could do more about talking. Otherwise, we wouldn't have allowed it to happen. We allowed private ownership of both print and electronic media. Now, thank God, you have got the latest one. What is it called?
Online, social media.
Social media. Thank God the people resisted it. Otherwise, it would have been killed. But the people resisted it.
So you think it was good, or you think it is good, the social media?
Yeah, it is good. It's still part of opening up, allowing Nigerians to talk and say what they want, allowing Nigerians to do their business even online and so on and so forth.
In every conversation that I have with northern based on leaders from northern Nigeria, I want usually to bring up this. Northern Nigeria has held power for quite a long time. People from northern Nigeria. And yet, paradoxically, the stats about northern Nigeria are not too good. Out of school children, the level of poverty, and so on. What do you put that down to? What do you think is responsible for that?
Are you talking about education now or something?
Generally speaking, I mean, most of the stats, if you take out of school children, most of them are in the north. If you take most of those who are below the poverty line, many of them are in the north. You've got a dearth of infrastructure in many parts of the north, many ungoverned spaces and so on. Yet, northerners have been in charge for most of the time. Is it a question of the blind spot?
Well, I don't know. I think you have to look at it generally. It started for a long time. During the colonial era, the system of governance around that time was not the same. Down south, they came into contact with the West much faster than northern Nigeria. And when the colonial masters also were there, the system of administration in the south is different from the one in the north. I don't know whether it was done deliberately by the colonial masters at that time. That affected the development when we come to talk about Nigeria as a nation. So the south has been in contact with the West for a much longer period than up in the north. I think that could be the reason.
Would you put part of that also down to, as you pointed out, the system in the north, the feudal system?
That's right. I wouldn't call it feudal.
No, it's just a word I use.
The indirect rule or something. Yeah, I think so.
How much of an impact do you think that has had? You grew up during the time.
I did, but I grew up when a lot of things were changing. People are becoming more informed, more involved, more politically conscious on a lot of things around us. We are now a country not called by names. We are Nigeria, not northern Nigeria, not southern Nigeria. But all the same, despite all that, the urge for political recognition by various groups that form up this country intensified around that period.
Do you think this could be partly responsible why, in spite of all the efforts, including those of people like you, there seems to be some underswell of animosity between the North and the South?
Thanks to the elites.
How do you mean?
You caused it. Well, we caused it. I'm one of them. We caused it. There is what we talked about, the tyranny of the elites. We don't seem to agree that there are a lot of things that are settled, that we have no cause, we have no basis to talk about them. I'll give you few examples. I don't believe that it is right for Nigerians now to start talking about the unity of this country. I believe it's a settled issue. We all agreed we are going to be a united country. So nobody now should be talking about an enclave that he calls his own. The country we agreed back in before independence that we are going to be a federation, united country, and so on. So Nigeria should not be talking about this. But people who talk about it are people like you and me, who will sit down and say, no, they want their own enclave. And you fan it so that it gets into the mind of people who belong to that organization. That if you believe in Nigeria, then talk about one Nigeria and not about any other thing about Nigeria. If you believe that we are going to have a federation, then talk about the federation that affects the federating units of the country, the federating units, the states, the local governments, and the rest of them. That has been settled. If you talk about the type of government we want to have, it is a presidential system of government. Of course, there are still stories. People want presidentialism or parliamentary system of government. There is still talk about this now.
Yes, some in fact want us to go back to 1963.
That's right. So those settled issues, it is also settled, as far as we are concerned, that we are not going to adopt any religion as the religion for the Federal Republic of Nigeria. A lot of settled issues we have, but today, if an elite wants a position, he stir up something, spread it. We still have to accept things that are settled. We don't talk about them. What we should be doing is how do we strengthen our unity? How do we improve our system of governance? How do we improve mobilizing the people to rally around the country? That is what we should be doing.
Well, I will start with yours and then probably talk generally, which is that, I mean, you mentioned 2 points now. You talked about the fact that we don't adopt any religion, and then you talked about the fact that the issue of unity settled. But there will be those who will argue that, for example, under your government, we went into the Organization of Islamic Countries, the OIC. So that tended to give the impression that we now have a state religion.
No. It's an organization. The state religion should come from us, saying that from today we are so, so, and so. No government has ever said so, including my own government. We never said Islam is the official religion of Nigeria. But our constitution allows us to enter any organization for the benefit of the country or for the benefit of the people of the country.
Let me take you to the issue of unity that you mentioned. A lot of people will say, yes, ideally, unity should have been a settled matter for a country that is 60 years old plus. But that sometimes the way those who have ruled at various jurisdictions and at various times have done that rulership has given the impression that some people are more important than others. And that, for example, federal character was instituted in order to give everybody a sense of belonging, that somebody who represents us is there. Do you think that's a fair comment?
I think we are probably gradually improving. You should consider merits. Before, hardly will you find a PhD holder from certain parts of this country. I was amazed. I give you an example. I was reading in the media, somebody made an analysis about a village in Kebbi That village has over 50 professors now, men and women. He listed all their names. And surprisingly, I know the village, I know the people that he mentioned, and so a lot of them we went to school together and so on. This is something would have been unheard of in the 60s and maybe early 70s. So things are improving as far as I'm concerned.
So you don't agree that some people have a right to feel left out?
No, I keep on saying people who feel left out or people who engineer being left out are the elites.
You've given the example before that at the base, people go everywhere and they interact and they go everywhere without any problems. But once those at the top decide that that is not in their interest, they then corral those below into believing that this other person is opposed. But at the political level, I mean, at which you operated at the very highest level, don't you think it's important that everybody feels that belonging? And that sometimes you need to deliberately go out of the general system in order to make particular people feel that they're part of the system and that that is good for the overall society?
But I believe that they feel. As I gave you the example before, people, a Yoruba man and Igbo man travels from Baga to his hometown or from his hometown to Baga to do nothing but trade, fishing, and so on and so forth. He is not molested, he feels at home, he interacts, maybe in certain cases he even married. There are a lot of them today in the south. If you tell them to go back to the north, they have no place to go. The generation that their fathers, their grandfathers were all born there, they don't have a home there, here. And this is Nigeria for you. But if the elites want to make himself known, he tries to create that difference, that it exists. And it is not in the interest of the country.
How do you bridge that gap? Because today, as you and I sit and talk, the country is divided. There are those who talk about what you referred to earlier on, but in a different context, the northernization agenda. There are others who feel that the gap between the North and the South hasn't been bridged and there's no conscious effort to do so, especially given the example that, for instance, in the Southeast, no one since the Civil War ended has held the position of leader of the country from that area. And that others in other parts of the country feel justified in saying, yes, you tried to leave. We're not allowing you get there.
So, what happens? This, I still go back to the people and the leaders. I still go back to elite and the people. They are the people who agreed, as far as I'm concerned, and I will say it here again, I believe the Nigerians should decide who should lead them. And those who want to lead must be adjudged competent, efficient, knowledgeable enough, and recognized by the people. The people recognize them. And how do you get recognized by the people? I want to say that if you are a doctor and you want to go into politics, by all means you can. But people will judge you if medical profession knows you, Maybe you made a lot of contribution in the medical field. You made a lot of contribution in engineering. So your professional colleagues know you very well. That is the first step. That knowledge is what you are going to bring to bear on us, the country, the people. So we should know you. We should know you are competent. We should know you are good. And anybody, as long as you are a Nigerian, as I said before, once you meet up these requirements, by all means, you could be. But people who are interested, even those who want to compete, will try to use that factor of we have not done it before. We want to do it now. It's not. The country is much more than that. It's much more than my people haven't done it, so I'm representing my people. Let me go and do it. It's not. The country is too important for that too important to allow it to people who think parochially in this issue.
Would you agree that there are no Nigerians in the sense today that you could say they are Rwandans? In the sense that in Rwanda, people are not identified by tribe, by law, especially in the aftermath of what happened in
And
there.
you know who did that? One man, Kagame. One man. After that genocide thing. Now it's an offense to say that you are a Tutsi or what is the other tribe? Hutu. It's an offense. One man. The brain of one man.
Because when people mention examples of societies or countries that are on the path to very major development, Rwanda is usually the first or the second example they give on the African continent.
Absolutely. And this is the effort and the initiative of one person.
Which takes me back to the strong man thing that I mentioned earlier on, Your Excellency.
Yeah, but the people gave him the mandate.
Yes, he does win elections.
He conducts elections. And he sold this idea of being Rwandese to the people. They said, yes, this is the right thing to do. I argued earlier that because we fought a civil war in this country, in the process, people died. You could say over 1 million on both sides. Why did they fight? Why did they die? Why did they lose their hands? Why did they lose their feet? Why did they lose their eyes? Because they want to keep this country together. Maybe we need a law that will talk about Nigeria as a one nation. So anybody who thinks otherwise is out of step.
The elephant in the room usually, whenever anybody talks,
He breaks the glasses, right?
talks about or talks to you, is this issue of June 12. And I want to give a little background in the sense that in the lead up to June 12, two parties were created. Nigerians bought into it. Option A4 was adopted. Nigerians bought into it. Two persons emerged from a process to be candidates. Nigerians bought. You asked them. You stood against the attempt to prevent them from voting at that time. So they were able to vote. All those who spoke about it said it was good.
Because the ordinary man likes it. He wants to know who is going to lead him. He wants to know who is going to represent him. And if I want to be elected, I have to present myself to you to say, look, this is what you need. I can represent you to get this because I have done A, B, C, D. either for the society or for any other organization, your professional bodies and the rest of them. And I'm glad they liked it. But what we did was simple. We said we wanted to know why elections results for a very long time in the history of this country were always doubted, were not acceptable. We set up a research, we set a committee, they did a research on why elections fail in this country. And these are some of the reasons we discovered as a result of the body we have set, which helps the country. But the elite will tell you that if you do that, it is no longer secret ballot. So secret, nobody should see who is voting or who is queuing and so on. That is the way they killed it.
But General, how tough was it for you when you put all that on the line, and yet you then had to take the decision to cancel it?
I think when you realize that decisions have to be made or decisions have to be taken, it may not be the right decision. It could be a wrong decision. But as I told you earlier, that it's always better to take a decision, even if it is a wrong decision. A decision should be taken, which one, as a leader, you considered is the best interest of the people. The rest you leave it for history. Because there is something that history will look at and say, okay, he has a basis for taking that decision. I would rather be adjudged that I have a basis for taking all the decisions I have than not taking decisions that goes contrary to my own decision.
How painful was it for you personally, having put everything on the line?
It was painful, but as a human being, when you realize that at any rate, time will take care of all these things. Some generations are going to come, and people will continue to look at what you did, no matter what time it is. In maybe 100 years, 50 years time, people will still talk about structural adjustment. So that's fine. People will, at that time, will say, oh yes, this is the right decision, or wrong decision, and so on. So if you realize that this could happen, then the pains that you feel will be substantially reduced, and say this is just the way of life.
That's for you. But for those who still feel pained 28 years down the line, today you're at 80, what would you say to them to possibly assuage some of that pain that you felt?
Maybe I try to find out more about them individually, why they should think that way.
But do you think that by now we still ought to be discussing June 12?
My straight answer to you is no. We should live above that now.
Perhaps what people are looking for is some form of closure. So, General, maybe you could use this opportunity to explain what it was that led you to take that decision.
And I know what you in the media are going to put across.
Try me, General.
No. People will see this interview And people will come out with an opinion about the interview. IBB apologize or regrets or something like that. They will put words into your mouth and my mouth on this interview. And there is nothing I can do or there is nothing you can do about it. So allow time to take care of it. It's a decision we took. I kept on saying I had to take that decision. I did that to the best of my knowledge in the interest of the country. I did the right thing. I can sit back and say, okay, some of the things that I said manifested after I had left. You had a coup. And that coup lasted for 5 years, right? There is impatience in you. When I say you, I mean Nigerian. Impatience. I drew up a program for you to have an election in 5 to 6 months after the interim government, right? So that you can have an election in November. We agreed that the same candidates can go back to the people to say that, to seek their mandate to run.
But
again, the same people. I didn't bring anybody from Mina. I didn't bring anybody from Niger State or something like that. The same people could have run. This was agreed even by the politicians, your so-called leaders at that time. But tyranny of the elite, they said, we are tired of election. Somebody said, okay, you are tired of election, I will give you time to rest. Took over the government and ran you for 5 good years. Maybe it could have been more, but for the providence of God did His wonders. So if I go and think about all this, I don't get pained at all. I accept it. This is the way of life for this country, and keep on praying that one day somebody will say, look, let's look at this thing more dispassionately on how these things. I feel I try to provide counter arguments with what others say, because it affects me. So I try to justify it by providing counter arguments to myself, thinking about it myself, and believing that one day somebody will see it my way.
One thing that people, of course, see your way, and which is very positive, was your role, and I think that would probably be when you came to national attention, the role you played in stopping the coup by Lieutenant Colonel Bukar Sukar Dimka, who incidentally was your friend.
He was my friend. We grew up together as young officers and trained together. And really, when I say friend, I mean he was my good friend.
The story is that you actually went there unarmed against the initial orders that you stormed the place and spoke to him to see whether you could get him to give it up willingly and without bloodshed.
Storming was the word, but there are consequences to storming the place. We would have killed more people. A lot of you journalists who were there, maybe they would not be living today. So we decided that, and I took advantage of my relationship with him as a human being. I'm not sure. I believe then he wouldn't look at me coming, and he knows I am, and put a pistol on my head. I believed there in my mind that he wouldn't do that. he will give me a chance. It's just like what we are trained to do. If somebody picks up a white flag, it's immoral to shoot him again and so on. Now he saw me coming unarmed. It's part of our training. You allow him to come. Or if there is fight going on, you arrest him and put him aside until you finish what you want to do. I think he applied both his military training and both of us knew our military training then. He wouldn't shoot an unarmed man.
It was a risk, though.
It was a risk. It has to be taken. Somebody has to take a risk.
There were those who said you changed a little after that, but you changed profoundly after April 22, 1990.
Changed to what?
Personally, you became a lot more withdrawn because a lot of those who participated in that coup as well were your boys.
Yeah, they were. That's a shocking thing, I must say, in life. A boy, somebody you knew, you trusted, and suddenly to find him. But how do I counter that? The same boys, there are some of them now that I can mention to you that really worked, and they still believed in what we did.
But
again, we were talking about elites. If you look at those who wanted to overthrow my government, the same thing you were talking about Gideon Oka,
yeah,
took some parts of Nigeria out and said they are no longer in Nigeria, and merged a lot of foolish things and called them this. So you begin to wonder, there is what, tribalism or what, or religion or something, something that went against the belief of an ordinary Nigerian.
But did change you?
Yeah, it did. Before that boy struck, he came and saw me. I knew him. I sent him on a training overseas. He came back, so he reported to me. I didn't know that this plan by him to get involved in this. He came and saw me. We talked. He told me all about his courses, what happened, and all that sort of thing. And the next thing was, yeah, that is leading a coup. I mean, it's just not on. But this has not made me to change about my perception about human beings generally.
Speaking of human beings generally, there were some of your colleagues with whom, well, some of them were your colleagues, some of them were senior, others were a bit junior, with whom you have a continuing relationship of sorts. So I'm going to mention some of the principal ones and ask you a little bit about them. It's no secret that you admire General Obasanjo.
I do.
Why?
Because he is a passionate believer about this country. He has faith in this country. I said it everywhere. And when I was growing up, I got into trouble, and he saved me, and I remain grateful to him for that. When he was a president, we talked about this country, about a lot of issues, and we tended to agree. The media believed that we don't agree, but we do.
Well, the belief came from what happened with SAP and the human face argument.
That's right. We remain very good. I remain still very loyal to him as my senior officer.
General T.Y. Danjuma.
He is my boss, immediate boss. I met him when I was a second lieutenant working in Kaduna at that time. And since then, the relationship struck. But it became more during the war. I served under him, both as a troop commander and as a staff officer, staff to him. And then he was also my chief of army staff.
Let me go to General Sani Abacha.
He was my friend. We were close when we were in the military. Really friend, I mean, in the real world, not on. And he's a man who talked less. When, to show you the extent of our friendship, when we were trying to stage a change of government, a lot of people felt he was very vital, to which is true. Then they said the only person who could draw him in was me because of my relationship with him. I went to him, I asked him to come and see me because I was his chief of army staff, even though we are. So he came, we talked about it, and he joined the conspiracy. And that's why we held his part of the division. He was commanding 2nd Division of the Nigerian Army in Ibadan. And that shows you that we were quite close. If I could get him involved in a coup, which could have been dangerous, and if it was not successful, he could have been dead. We could all have been dead. But he risked it and came along.
People said he believed that he should have been head of state after you. Hence the nickname Khalifa.
Look, that idea was there when we were there as in the same. I used to tease him that, look, I can give you this seat. One day they had, was an argument, promotion. I promoted him to the same rank that I have because he was my course mate from day one. Some of my colleagues argued, why did you have to do it? You are the boss. You shouldn't have somebody of the same rank. So I said there is a difference. In my car, there is the
Coat of arms?
coat of arms on both sides. On Abacha's car, there are 4 stars. So there is difference.
Did you remain friendly even after he became head of state and you came home?
Yeah. We talked, we greeted each other.
There was no time at which you felt he might have felt threatened that your being around was somehow harmful to him?
No, he was being fed with that feeling by others, especially in the armed forces. They feed him with that perception. But thanks to God, he resisted this.
General Babangida, it's been a pleasure and a privilege to speak with you on this occasion.
Thank you, Ladi.
Happy 80th birthday and many, many more to come.
Thank you.
That's NewsNight. Thanks for watching. Do let us know what you think of this conversation and much more. Our social media handles are on your screen. You can also listen to this and previous episodes of the program via our podcast. Please visit our website, channelstv.com/podcast. I'm Ladi Akiriduluale. Goodbye.